All right. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good day, whatever you say to yourself. Welcome to the Voice in the Pen podcast. Really excited to be here today with our guest, Jessy Esterline. Jessy is a North Carolina native, singer, songwriter extraordinaire, and we're really happy to have you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is very free form, but, there are obviously some things that we kind of cover in terms of songwriting and approaches and that sort of stuff. But, the big thing is really we want to take some time to get to know you, get to know your music, how you approach it, and what on earth made you think like, hey, I ought to write songs. That's
Yeah. Yeah. That's a journey.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Where do you want me to start?
Um,
From the top?
when did you start playing music?
I started playing music. I got interested in piano as a
Mhm.
kid. And my dad always played drums. I would watch him play drums and for the church. And then, I'd kind of bang around. He'd teach me a
Mhm.
thing or two. But really, my first venture in music got started. I was about 7 years old.
Mhm.
Started taking classical piano.
Okay.
My grandmother helped me do that. And it was really interesting because I really didn't have a lot growing up. So my parents really struggled to provide those types of opportunities for me.
Mhm.
But there's a lady in the church. Her name was Miss Sarah, and she taught piano lessons. So I would go to her house, and she raised birds. So my chore was to take care of the birds
Mhm.
and return for piano lessons. It was a good trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then from there, I carried that with me. But I think, there's a lot of pressure to play for the church
Mhm.
and recitals and all that stuff. And I just got burned out as a kid
Sure.
on it. I just kind of wanted to know how to play, NSYNC or something.
Yes, secular music.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to play secular music at all. So actually, that's a good point. I remember the first bit of sheet music. I kind of tricked my grandfather. We went to a bookstore, and he said, "You can get whatever you want. Give me an allowance." And I go in there, and I remember buying a Brian McKnight sheet music book
Yeah.
and learned back at one.
Okay.
Bought a Titanic sheet music so that, learned that whole thing. And then from there, I kind of, like I said, I got burned out on it. So I put it to the side for a long time and just kind of kept it for me.
Mhm.
Passing by pianos in stores, playing them every once in a while. But just too shy to be in front of people doing it.
Yeah.
So I think it was my senior year of high school. There was like a talent contest. And I distinctly remember being in the band room of the high school playing piano, and the music teacher walked in. And there was a talent show coming up. There was advertisements about it all over school. And he goes, "You gonna play?" And I go, "No,
What do
I'm
you
not
mean?
gonna do that." Yeah, why do I want to do that? It's kind of a new school for me, so I didn't know a lot of people. Like I was still getting to know people.
Yeah.
So I was very shy about it, but I ended up doing it. He sucked me into it, and it was a really cool experience. It's like one of those things you only know when you get on stage and you play,
Yeah.
no matter how scared you are.
Yep.
And then you're like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I really did that.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how bad or good it was, it's like, I actually did that. So it was
Yeah.
a proud moment.
Yeah.
So then I left, graduated high school
Mhm.
and joined the military. And there really wasn't much time for playing music then. But still, same thing. If I found a piano or something, pick it up and start doodling or whatever. But I had some good friends when I deployed that played guitar, and a few friends on bass that played guitar before I deployed. They were kind of trying to teach me. I was like, man, this hurts. Like,
Said every guitar player ever.
right? Why do I want to do this? This is torture.
Everybody can remember that first time when you're like, ding, ding, no
yeah.
sound, fingers hurt.
So I guess when I was deployed, not to put any brands out there, but Amazon had just really started selling things other than books and shipping them places, right?
Wherever.
So I'm in the Middle East, right? And I'm like, all these guys around me, the maintenance guys and stuff that I work with, because I worked on the flight line, they were all like, they had a guitar, and they would sit in the smoke pit and they would play strum stuff. One guy would play Coheed, the other guy would play Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they started teaching me, general chords. I think the first chord I learned was a G. And I wrote my first song with a G chord.
Okay.
But I sat over there. I ordered it from Amazon, this little travel guitar. It's called a Johnson guitar.
Yep.
And so tiny. And I was like, this thing's never going to get to me, right? It got to me on time in the Middle East. And I was like a fan for Amazon from then on out. But yeah, started learning to play a few chords there. I've always been writing.
Yeah. So that was
So
what I was wondering is like fast forward from, kind of being convinced, encouraged, coerced, pushed off the
mhm.
edge to performing in high school to when you wrote your first song. And like when was that transition from, oh, I'm a performer, right? I can perform musically, I can sing, I can do these things. But then to move to creating and performing your own material is another step in a way.
Right. It was a huge step. Again,
So first song was in G. What was that like? What was that experience like writing your first song?
um, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I played it for a few friends, and they were like, "That needs some work."
Good friends though, right? I mean,
Right,
like,
right.
okay, that's
But
helpful.
they kept pushing me, and,
Yeah.
like, a lot of those friends are still around in my life today, and it's really cool to see them watch me evolve, but also to watch some of them
Yeah.
evolve because they're also in the music. But yeah, I got to that point, I think, when I wrote my first song. I dabbled in music. When I got back from deployment and I got settled at home, I got out of the military. I moved to Greenville, North Carolina. I started school there, and that was a really magical time in my life. My It was also a very hard time in my life. My grandmother, who was like a mother to me, was suffering from dementia, and she's the one that pushed me into music. And I spent a lot of time with her at her house, taking care of her, being her caretaker. And you run out of things to do. So I remember, so I was in school for recreational therapy, and we talked about how music helps a lot with all of that. So I took my guitar, that little Travel Johnson,
Yep.
and I sat down one day and I said, I'm gonna try to learn a song that she would know. And the only thing that came to mind was Jolene, Dolly Parton's Jolene.
Mhm.
So I played it for her, and she sang every word. She couldn't tell you my name, anyone else's name, the name of general things, but
Mhm.
she sang every word to that song. And something just struck where it said, "There's something powerful here."
Mhm.
And I owe it to her to keep pursuing this
Mhm.
and to myself.
Mhm.
So I decided to sign up for my first open mic. And I did that in Greenville, North Carolina. And I think it's called the Boneyard now.
Mhm.
But it used to be, what's the name of it? I can't even think of it right now.
I don't know.
I'm
I'm not super
Do you still
familiar.
have that guitar?
I gave that guitar, I think, to a friend of ours,
Okay.
a mutual friend of ours.
I wasn't sure. I've never seen it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so it's still in a safe place. It's still in town.
It hadn't skipped town yet.
No. Well, interesting bit to that story with that guitar. Two people signed it that I was deployed with. It was the two guys that helped me learn how to play.
Yeah.
And one of them was actually a special forces guy I flew home with on the flight home. So there's two signatures on that guitar that are really important to me, of people that helped me learn.
Like that one back, please.
No. That's I gave it away to someone very special.
Oh,
And,
that's important too.
I'm a big fan of gifting things forward
Yes.
when they no longer serve their purpose.
Mhm.
But yeah, I got started playing in Greenville. Went to my first open mic, and there were so many talented musicians there. And I just remember one here locally, like, mentioning you should keep doing this or give me like really good advice. I remember like eat the mic
Mhm.
after I was done.
Mhm.
That was one thing I heard.
Mhm.
And I just decided after that to go into it open heartedly. And I was there every chance they had an open mic. And I did that for about maybe 2 years, just getting my feet wet, meeting people before it really clicked. There's enough people telling you like you should be doing this.
Mhm.
Maybe you should give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I remember that first check from that first paid gig and how proud I was of that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
You tell yourself these things that you're your own worst critic.
Mhm.
And there are certain people that are not always great supporters, in your life that maybe might be a little bit bitter about you pursuing your goal
Mhm.
and they didn't.
Mhm.
And you get some of that too. But for the most part, everyone I met along the way has been super supportive. I mean, musicians are a different breed
Mhm.
in a lot of different ways.
Fair.
But one thing I can attest for sure is that there's so many bleeding hearts in this community.
Yeah.
And a lot of me getting started with those first gigs were other musicians that were well experienced, beyond me, that said, "Hey, I think you got something here. Here's my gear. Go out, use it."
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to go do it. I
Yeah,
wasn't going to
yeah.
go buy all that stuff. But just that little bump, which
Mhm.
is a huge bump, by the
Yeah,
way,
it's a
because
huge
gear's
bump.
not cheap.
No, it's not.
Got me out of the door
Mhm.
and out of my head a little bit. And so I just started booking
Yeah.
and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone at this table can attest to that feeling,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. So when did the songwriting really kick in for you? When did you start writing songs?
I've been writing songs my whole life and didn't know it.
Okay.
In the form of,
Yeah.
yeah, in the form of poetry or otherwise, humming melodies.
Mhm.
But really my process has always been, once I learned enough chords on a guitar or a piano, I will sit down and just play.
Mhm.
And honestly, from the beginning, I think I always had a recorder set up somewhere.
Mhm.
I've never been the person that wrote it down and was like really analytical about how it was structured.
Mhm.
I really love the raw feeling behind things, to capture kind of what I'm feeling. And sometimes I didn't even know I was feeling in that moment I was writing. It just comes off the cuff.
Mhm.
I was gonna say you're a very stream of consciousness
For sure.
type of writer because you'll just sit down and play a chord progression that you're like, that sounds cool,
Yeah.
and then you just like keep going with lines, and I'm like, how do you do that? Like, you just keep going, and then you like record it and pick them out, and you're like, okay, I like this, and let's get rid of this, and it's just very like
Right.
just like flows out. I feel like.
I think it's hard because I really honor a lot of musicians and songwriters that can sit down and they have a very structured way of writing.
Mhm.
I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
And that's what's really interesting now because I've had, you guys know, but I've had a lot of time where I haven't been playing
Mhm.
or haven't been able to play. And within that time, it's taught me to write without having an instrument there.
Mhm.
I'll listen to music as I'm riding down the road and I'll like the beat or something, or the tempo.
Mhm.
And I'll kind of like pick out like something in my head and
Mhm.
it'll start ruminating.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll write that down in my notes now.
Mhm.
And before I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'd have to have something there. It's just really changed the way that I've had to approach writing.
Mhm.
But it's also made me a lot more aware of how it can strengthen a lot of the songs that I currently have.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, the structured part for me is really more along trying to stay organized.
Mhm.
Because I'm not sure. Maybe some people do write in a structured way where they sit down and they write a song in the morning every day, and that's like a ritual for them. Maybe, but I haven't talked to anybody that really does it that way. It's like we all have these little
Mhm.
lightning bolt moments where you hear a snippet of that or something from a song, something inspirational, and you make a note of it somehow, a notebook or a voice memo, or you record it. But then having the discipline to go back and listen to it, and then spend some dedicated time to going, oh, let's expand that idea
Mhm.
a little bit, has been, I don't know, kind of what I feel and hear coming from a lot of people that are talking about this. Is that, I don't know, do you sense that or?
Yeah, I do. I think the big thing I've been trying to think about like really what has changed in my writing or
Mhm.
where I want to go with it.
Mhm.
And I think when we all first start writing, it's cathartic, right? You're really just doing it for yourself.
Mhm.
And there comes a point in time where you play for so long, you're like, okay, how do I grow with this?
Mhm.
And then you start writing for other people to play with you.
Mhm.
Or you allow other people to come in and kind of put their touch on what you're doing.
Mhm.
And it expands a little bit more.
Mhm.
And then it goes a little bit further out of that, maybe at the same time, simultaneously, you're thinking, how does this affect other people?
Mhm.
Because these are really personal things that we're putting out.
Yeah.
But you also want someone to listen to it that can connect to it in the same way
Mhm.
that you connect to music, that same pull that pulled you to writing.
Mhm.
So there's a little bit more thought into the writing process now
And more intention.
and more intention than it used to be.
Mhm.
Because before, again, it used to be like just my own therapy.
Mhm.
Now I've seen like it feels so much better with other people.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I want to go with my writing now. And I've been writing with other people, trying to do co-writes. Emily and I have done co-writes. And it's so much fun.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, this is why I did this. Because from the first open mic, there was a sense of community.
Mhm.
And the more that I do it, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you start to realize, like, hey, I'm not alone in these things. If I'm having like a writer's block, I'm not alone in it. There are other people that struggle with it.
Mhm.
If I'm not really good with composition, I'm not, there are people that I can go to. I can be more resourceful and less protective over what I write,
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's been really the beautiful part about this. It took me so long to get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could have hit rewind a little bit,
Mhm.
but and like maybe start that process a little sooner. But I think I'm in the right place now with the right people and the right frame of mind to make that happen.
That's good.
And that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that really resonates with me a lot too. For a while, it took time before I felt like I was, competent enough really as a musician to contribute to
Sure.
some sort of co-writing or some sort of, because a lot of my writing lyric came first in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Poetry was first, but I always heard sounds and always played an instrument, but I couldn't express myself well enough on the guitar to, like looking back, really feel like I could actually contribute well to a co-write situation. Like Emily and I have tried to write a few songs together. We
Yeah.
get some momentum on stuff, but and I'm so there's all that growth that happens, but it
Sure.
doesn't happen if you sit in the room by yourself. It's like just
Yeah.
the act of getting
Right.
out and starting a co-write, even if the song doesn't get finished. I think there's such a powerful thing in that sharing of space and energy to
I was gonna say, we've
influence each other.
not only have we've tried to write from scratch, we've sat. Well, I mean, you sat in with us for one of
Yeah,
our
that was fun.
sessions on writing that song.
The song is on its fourth iteration right now.
That-
It will get done. I promise. I swear it's
That
going
we
to get
still need
finished.
Schedule time to
That's a great
finish.
song.
But we've also sat with each other and been like, here, can you listen to this song that I'm not sure where to go, and we've each kind of like given each other
Mhm.
maybe a direction or an idea, or this is what I hear, because sometimes it's hard when you're so close to a song, maybe, or you start something, you have this idea, and then you're not sure where to go, like you said.
Yeah.
And like someone else can hear it and be like, oh, this is what I think of when I just heard what and you're like, oh, yeah, that's a cool direction.
Yep.
So co-writing can be, I want to say, intimidating, but also it doesn't have to be. You can just be like, take it or leave it. These are ideas. This is what I hear.
Yeah. So there's a great podcast that maybe we should or shouldn't edit out of this when I say the words, but there's a great podcast called The Broken Record, and if you haven't listened to it, it's totally worth checking out because they're interviewing a bunch of songwriters as well. It's Malcolm Gladwell and Rick Rubin, and they interview a trio of women that have written for everybody from Taylor Swift to you name it, and they talk about that. The importance of co-writes, and I think one of the things that I've learned from not only listening to that, but like our experiences writing and my experience working with you co-writing, like just the different things that we bounced around is, at least for me, I used to go into it with this mindset, well, we're going to get together, we're going to write a song. And like, nah, baby,
Right.
But what we're going to do is we're going to get together and we're going to have a beverage of our choice, coffee, water, tea, a beer, whatever. We're going to talk about music. We're going to, do some things, play some songs together, focus on original stuff, and see how that influence impacts whatever we're thinking or feeling. And it might be something that you run with in that session, and it might be something that comes back to you months later when you find a song typed like, oh, I should look at this and work. I have ideas for you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as your writing process develops now, it's still led with the music, like expressing yourself musically with a guitar, with an instrument, and then kind of lyrics coming, or do the lyrics come first sometimes?
It's crazy. It's daunting when your process changes because you're like, if this works, I think the important thing is like it's cool to try stuff, right?
Mhm.
You try it. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, cool. But you can always come back to it.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of like doing this back and forth now, where I'll be in the car and I'll hear like a melody. And have you seen that movie, the Elton John movie, Rocket Man?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have not seen it, no.
Okay. Well, I watched that movie and it resonated with me in a very deep way because we tell ourselves these things over and over again. I'm not a good composer. I'm not this. I'm that. Right. We lean on our strengths, but then we're like, we're not good at this.
Yeah.
Right. Watching that movie, like my whole life, I can identify with him as a kid in that movie, where it's just like you hear like this music in your head all the time. And I do, but I try to match it on the guitar. It doesn't work or whatever. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just bad at this, right?
Mhm.
But again, leaning on being more resourceful, leaning a lot more on my friends now that have different skills sets than I do.
Mhm.
And I'll say, hey, what do you think about this? like, what could we do to add this part or whatever? Because I really want it to match this
Mm-hmm.
line or this whatever. Um, and that's really been helpful. But like lately, I haven't been writing a lot, honestly. I think that I've just mostly been listening,
Mm-hmm.
and that's important too.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine once told me that, sometimes it's more important just to listen until you have something to say.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a lot to process.
Yeah, you do. You've had
I've
a
been-
lot.
I've been
You've
through
a
it.
lot.
I've been through it, and I'm not so sure. There's a lot of words there. And I've written a lot of little notes. I have more notes in my phone now than I ever have, where I just go in and write, which is, again, I don't usually write them until after I go listen to the audio that I've recorded. So now it's just mostly all lyrics. So at some point I want to put some music to it.
Yeah.
And I think I might approach that a little bit differently now, just because I'm a little limited in my guitar playing these days. I can still play, but it's just rough.
Yeah,
So
different.
I think this whole experience the last 6 months of being kind of stagnant with music has pushed me into that next thing that I was always afraid to do, which is pull the keys back out. And because that's my love instrument. Everybody's got their love instrument. That's mine.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to focus on that part a lot more than I have, just to give it a little bit of a tribute. Prince had different projects for different, albums. And I feel like I'm in that phase of my life where I'm kind of working on a different project. I want to
Awesome.
expand on what's already there, but I also want to try like something different.
Yeah.
For
You definitely need more out there. That was like when we did the Voice in the Pen album. I was like, yes, now we get to record one of your songs.
Yeah.
We put Walk for a While out there.
Yeah.
And so it's like hopefully propelled you to get a little bit more recording done.
Yeah, you guys have really, honestly, just like on a side note here, have really pushed me to keep pushing for music, in a weird way. Like, I feel like life has kind of led me to people that have always pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and I've leaned into it, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't lean away from it.
Right.
Right? Because I wouldn't have all these beautiful people in my life,
Yeah.
like, that are providing support and encouragement. But honestly, like Emily, when we were like trapped for quarantine for like 2 weeks with COVID, house sitting, was just like, you need to record this stuff. And, I'd never really been through the recording process. So I'd done it one time, and it was a good friend of mine. And he said, come in, I've got the studio, let's try this thing. And I went in, and all we did was jam.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
I didn't care about all the rest of it. So it's a new way. It's between the two of you of like really learn like the ins and outs of like recording and how much work that takes, and getting to go record for the first time in a real studio with Trent was amazing.
It's an experience.
It's an
isn't it?
experience, yeah.
Yeah, we talked to him about like the click track and what you have to do to prepare. And,
Yeah.
you go in there and you're like, I'm so glad I don't have to play guitar on this song.
It's a crazy stretch from like a guitar on a couch in your living room or playing out in front of a crowd of people when you're used to your gear to this whole overwhelming process of like all this gear. And you're like, you think you'll just show up, plug in, and play. But there's all these little nuances and steps. So you got to go, and you got to stay in the right frame of mind.
And you're the
It's
only
tough.
one there.
Yeah.
You, your own worst critic, are there in the studio with you, the
Right.
performer.
With headphones on, listening to every little mistake
Yeah,
you
that's
might
the
make.
weird part. Like having to hear yourself,
I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't like hearing myself the first time I ever heard a recording of me singing. I was like, oh, I should not be doing this. Why?
You have a great voice, man.
Well, thank you.
You've got like that radio voice, it's all smooth.
It's getting there. Thank you. I've learned to love it. It's taken time, but I definitely, the first time you hear, I don't know, most people I've talked to, the first time they hear a
Strange.
recording of themselves is really weird. Also, because scientifically you hear differently. So when you speak,
Mhm.
what you hear is not the same thing you'll hear if you listen to a recording of yourself,
Right.
because your ears work differently. I
Yeah, we
guess.
got all these bones and stuff in the way.
Yeah, like cochlear fluid.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole other rabbit hole. We're going to get to hear you play a couple songs today,
Cool.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're stoked for that. We're
Cool.
going to get you set up for that and make the necessary arrangements. Thank you so
All right.
much for
Thank you
being
guys
here
so
and
much.
hanging out.
I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
we appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Keep doing the thing.
We'll keep doing the things.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, the words that fall right out your mouth when they do. Give the chance to make it through, yeah. Amazing love, how could it be that you would love someone like me? And you do, yeah. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. You saved me, baby, now I'm found inside your arms, nowhere else I'd rather be. Nowhere else I'd rather be. I'm just a tumbleweed blowing in the wind, and you called me. I'm just a tumbleweed blowing in the wind, and you called me. Amazing love, this little dream. It starts with you and it ends so sweet. Amazing love, this little dream. It starts with you and it ends so sweet. I'm just a tumbleweed blowing in the wind, and you called me. I'm just a tumbleweed blowing in the wind, and you called me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you've been stealing my water and drinking my gin. Your welcome wore out before you walked in. I never met a stranger, but I swear we're not friends. Singing my soul to the devil who knew the noose on my neck already coming loose. All I see is red, you best be warned. I've been crazy in the head since my brother was dead. I've been born again more often than not. I know better than the troubles I've saw. I'm down on my luck, but I know it's all true. That God made the devil and the devil tempts you. God made the devil and the devil tempts you. God made the devil and the devil's in you. God made the devil and the devil's not through. Maybe it's a goddamn woman in you. La da 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 da. Stealing our water, drinking our gin, feeding us poison, and I won't let you in. Why do the good always die so young? And why do the bad stay to get shit done? Why do the good always go too young? And why do the bad stay to get shit done? Now I've been down on my luck, down on my life. All I ever wanted was a goddamn try. Down on my luck, down on my life. Tell the devil to give me his best damn try. God made the devil and the devil tempts you. God made the devil and the devil's in you. God made the devil and the devil's not through. Maybe it's the goddamn woman in you. La da 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 da, da da da. Stealing our water, drinking our gin, feeding us poison, and I won't let you in. Well, she smokes that reefer and she snorts that dope. Her face is faded and her hands are swole. Her razor is sharpened and her teeth are sore. Chewing bit by bit, begging life for more. I've been searching for my heaven and kneeling for my truth and asking for God to rescue me too. The angel was forgotten and my God's gone black. He's hidden in the image of a barrel painted black. God made the devil and the devil tempts you. God made the devil and the devil's not through. God made the devil and the devil's not through. Maybe it's the goddamn woman you. La da 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 da, da da da. Stealing our water, drinking us gin, feeding us poison, and I won't let you in.